Hi, Corinne, Helen, John. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I also want to thank Phoebe McAdams for her help. Today we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. This was Bob Beecher's idea. Some of the poets whose poetry we are reading today are Pablo Neruda, a Chilean poet who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971, Natalie Diaz, who won the Pulitzer for Poetry in 2021 for her book, Post-Colonial Love Poem, Luis J. Rodríguez, who was the first Hispanic poet laureate in Los Angeles in 2014, Aleida Rodríguez, who, with her mother, emigrated to Los Angeles from Cuba after Castro came to power, Juan Felipe Herrera, who was the first Hispanic U.S. poet laureate in 2015. Some of the themes of poems featured today are love, loss, exile, displacement, home, compassion, and suffering. The Hispanic poets we are reading today have enriched the language and our lives with their superlative poetry. The splendid readers in order of their appearance are Corinne Conley, Helen Richman, myself, Harry Northup, and John Towey. Here's Corinne Conley.
Thank you, Harry. This first poem is Heroics by Julia Alvarez. We keep coming to this part of the story where we're sad. I've broken up with my true love, man after man. You've found it. Once it was God. Once revolution in the third world. Now it's love. You'll survive, our mother said, when romance was once. Now they keep tight faces for our visits home and tell their friends all that education has confused us. All those poems. They have, we laugh, and buy the dreams. Red Book, House Beautiful, Mademoiselle, and Vogue. To read out stories in them and send the clippings home. Sometimes the bright chase of ad lovers in a meadow set sells us to belief again in that worn plot of love. Sadly, we turn the page to write our hearts, knowing our lives too well to be the heroines of our mother's stories. We're careful with the words we pick, the loves with no returns, like the ones we wanted. Aunts to our sisters' boys, we bring them squawking rubber monsters, birthday poems pasted in the growing albums. Julia Alvarez again. Hairbands. My husband has given away my hairbands in my dream to the young women he works with. My black velvet, my mauve, my patent leather one, the olive band with the magenta rose whose paper petals crumble in the door. The flowered crepe, the felt with a rickrack of vines, the twine mock tortoise shells. He says I do not need them. I've cut my hair so it no longer falls in my eyes when I read or when we are making love and I bend over him. But no, I tell him, you do not understand. I want my hairbands, even if I don't need them. These are the trophies of my maidenhood, the satin dress with buttons down the back, the scented box with the scalloped photographs. This is my wild-haired girlhood dazzled with stories of love, the romantic heroine with the pale operatic face who throws herself on the train tracks of men's arms. These are the chastened girl selves I gave up to become the woman who could be married to you. But every once in a while, I pull them out of my dresser drawer and touch them to my cheek. Worn velvet and faded silk, mi tesoro, mi juventude, which my husband has passed on to the young women who hold for him the promise of who I was. And in my dream, I weep real tears that wake me up to my husband sleeping beside me, that deep sleep that makes me tremble thinking of what is coming. And I slip out of bed to check that they are still mine, my crumbled rose, my mauve, my black hair bands. Cloud by Sandra Cisneros. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. That's attributed to Thich Nhat Hanh. Before you became a cloud, you were an ocean, roiled and murmuring like a mouth. You were the shadow of a cloud, crossing over a field of tulips. You were the tears of a man who cried into a plaid handkerchief. You were a sky without a hat. Your heart puffed and flowered like sheets drying on a line. And when you were a tree, you listened to trees and the tree things trees told you. You were the wind in the wheels of a red bicycle. You were the spidery Maria tattooed on the hairless arm of a boy in downtown Houston. You were the rain rolling off the waxy leaves of a magnolia tree. A lock of straw-colored hair wedged between the mottled pages of a Victor Hugo novel. A crescent of soap, a spider the color of a fingernail. The black nets beneath the sea of olive trees, a skein of blue wool, a tea saucer wrapped in newspaper, an empty cracker tin, a bowl of blueberries in heavy cream, white wine in a green-stemmed glass. And when you opened your wings to the wind, across the punch-tin sky, above a prison courtyard, those condemned to death and those condemned to life watched how smooth and sweet a white cloud glides. The First Woman by Aleida Rodríguez. She was my Sunday school teacher when I was just 7 and 8. He was the newly hired pastor, an albino, alarming sight with his transparent eyelashes and mouse pink skin that looked like it might hurt whenever she caressed his arm. Since Eva was her name, to my child's mind, it made great sense that she should fall in love with him. He was Aiden before the fall and afterward her invert twin. And she, Eva, was blonde as well, though more robust, like Liv Ullmann. I loved her honey hair, her full lips, her green eyes and nameless sin. Not that I worried all that much. The church was Presbyterian. In Sunday school, her way to teach us kids to pray was to comment on all the beauty we could touch or see in our environment. My hand was always in the air to volunteer my sentiment, since the other kids considered prayer a chore. The floor was usually mine. My list of joys left out her hair, but blessed the red hibiscus seen through the windows while others bowed their heads. Her heart I schemed to win with purple prose on meringue clouds. For who was Aiden anyway, I thought, but nada spelled backward, while hers reversed called out Ave, Ave, the lyric of a bird born and airborne on the same day. But it was night when I saw her outside the church for the last time. Yellow light, mosquitoes, summer. I shaped a barking dog, a fine but disembodied pair of wings with my hands. She spoke in hushed tones to my parents. The next day I would find myself up north in a strange house, without my tongue and almost blind. There was so much to see. This caused Cuba, my past, to be eclipsed in time, but Eva stayed a loss. Ave, I learned, meant also this, farewell. I haven't seen her since.
My Brother, My Wound by Natalie Diaz. He was calling in the bulls from the street. They came like a dark river, a blur of chest and hoof, everything moving under splinter, hooked their horns through the walls. Light hummed the holes like yellow jackets. My mouth was a nest, torn empty. Then he was at the table. Then in the pig's jaw, he was not hungry. He was stop. He was bad apple. He was choking. So I punched my fists against his stomach. Mars flew out and broke open or bloomed. How many small red eyes shut in that husk? He said, look, look. And they did. He said, lift up your shirt. And I did. He slid his fork beneath my ribs. Yes, he sang. A Jesus side wound. He wouldn't stop bleeding. He reached inside and turned on the lamp. I never knew I was also a lamp until the light fell out of me, dripped down my thigh, flew up in me, caught in my throat like a canary. Canaries really means dogs, he said. He put on his shoes. You started this with your mouth, he pointed. Where are you going, I asked. To ride the Ferris wheel, he answered, and climbed inside me like a window. The Facts of Art by Natalie Diaz. The Arizona highway sailed across the desert, a gray battleship drawing a black wake, halting at the foot of the orange mesa, unwilling to go around. Hopi men and women, brown and small and clay-like, peered down from their tabletops at yellow tractors, water trucks, and white men blistered with sun, red as fire ants, towing sunscreen-lathered wives in glinting Airstream trailers in caravans behind them. Elders knew these BIA roads were bad medicine, knew too that young men listen less and less. And these young Hopi men needed work, hence set aside their tools, blocks of cottonwood root and half-finished koshari the clown katsinos, then signed on with the Department of Transportation. Were hired to stab drills deep into the earth's thick red flesh on First Mesa, drive giant sparking blades across the mesa's faces, run the drill bits so deep they smoked, bearding all the Hopi men in white. Bad spirits, said the elders. The blades caught fire, burned out. Masa is angry, the elders said. New blades were flown in by helicopter, while elders dreamed their arms and legs had been cleaved off and their torsos were flung over the edge of a dinner table. The young Hopi men went back to work, cutting the land into large chunks of rust. Nobody noticed at first, not the white workers, not the Indian workers, but in the mounds of dismantled mesa, among the clods and piles of sand, lay the small gray bowls of babies' skulls. Not until they climbed to the bottom did they see the silvered bones glinting from the freshly sliced dirt and rock wall. A mausoleum mosaic, a sick tapestry, the tiny remains roused from death's dusty cradle, cut in half, cracked, wrapped in time-tattered scraps of blankets. Let's call it a day, the white foreman said. That night, all the Indian workers got sad, drunk, got sick, while elders sang to their kivas in prayer. Next morning, as dawn festered on the horizon, state workers scaled the mesas, knocked at the doors of pueblos that had them, hollered into those without them, demanding the Hopi men come back to work, then begging them, then buying them whiskey, begging again, finally sending their white wives up the dangerous trail etched into the steep sides to buy baskets from Hopi wives and grandmothers as a sign of treaty. When that didn't work, the state workers called the Indians lazy, sent their sun hat-wearing wives back up to buy more baskets, katsinas too, then called the Hopis good-for-nothings before begging them back once more. We'll try again in the morning, the foreman said. But the Indian workers never returned. The BIAS and DOTS calls to work went unanswered as the fevered Hopis stayed huddled inside. The small bones, half buried in the crevices of mesa, in the once holy darkness of silent earth and always night, smiled or sighed beneath the moonlight, while white women in Airstream trailers wrote letters home praising their husbands' patience, describing the lazy savages, such squalor in their stone and plaster homes, cobs of corn stacked floor to ceiling against crumbling walls, their devilish ceremonies, and the barbaric way they buried their babies. Oh, and those beautiful, beautiful baskets. Me llamaban Cuatro Añitos by Gabriela Mistral. Me llamaban Cuatro Añitos y ya tenía 12 años. Así me mentaban, pues no hacía lo de mis años. No cosía, no zercía, tenía los ojos vagos. Cuentos pedía, romances, y no lavaba los platos. Ay, y sobre todo, a causa de un hablar así, rimado. They called me Little 4 years. They called me Little 4 years, and I was already 12. They called me thus because I did not act my age. I did not sew. I did not darn. I had a vague gaze. I asked for stories, narrative poems, and did not wash the dishes. Alas, and above all, because I spoke thus in rhyme. mis libros by Gabriela Mistral. Biblia, mi noble Biblia, panorama estupendo, en donde se quedaron mis ojos largamente. Tiene sobre los campos las lavas más ardientes, y en su río de fuego mi corazón enciendo. Sustentaste a mis gentes con tu robusto vino, y los erguiste recios en medio de los hombres. Ya a mí me yergue de ímpetu solo el decir tu nombre, porque yo de ti vengo, he quebrado el destino. Después de ti, tan solo me traspasó los huesos con su ancho Aleida el sumo florentino. My books, Bible, my noble Bible, magnificent panorama, where my eyes lingered for a long time. You have in the Psalms the most burning of lavas, and in its river of fire I lit my heart. You sustained my people with your strong wine, and you made them stand strong among men. And just saying your name gives me strength, because I come from you. I have broken destiny. After you, only the scream of the great Florentine went through my bones.
Always Running by Luis J. Rodríguez. All night Virgil, all night vigil. My 2.5-year-old boy and his 10-month-old sister lay on the bed, facing opposite ends, their feet touching. They look soft, peaceful, bundled there in strands of blankets. I brushed away roaches that meandered across their faces, but not even that could wake them. Outside, the dark cover of night tore as daybreak bloomed like a rose on a stem of thorns. I sat down on the back steps, gazing across a yellowed yard. A 1954 Chevy Bel Air stared back. It was my favorite possession. I hated it just then. It didn't start when I tried to get it going earlier that night. It had a bad solenoid. I held a 12-gauge shotgun across my lap. I expected trouble from the Paragons gang of the West Linwood barrio. Somebody said I drove the car that dudes from Colonial Watch used to shoot up the Paragons neighborhood. But I got more than trouble that night. My wife had left around 10 p.m. to take a friend of mine home. She didn't come back. I wanted to kill somebody. At moments, it had nothing to do with the Paragons. It had to do with a woman I loved. But who to kill? Not her. Sweet allure wrapped in a black skirt. I'd kill myself first. Kill me first? But she was the one who quit. Kill her? No, think, man, I was hurt, angry. But to kill her, to kill a Paragon, to kill anybody, I went into the house and put the gun away. Later that morning, my wife came for her things, some clothes, the babies, their toys, a radio, broken TV, and some dishes remained. I didn't stop her. There was nothing to say that my face didn't explain already. Nothing to do but run. So I drove the long haul to Downey and parked near an enclosed area alongside the Los Angeles River. I got out of the car, climbed over the fence, and stumbled down the slopes. A small line of water rippled in the middle. On rainy days, this place flooded and flowed, but most of the time it was dry, with dumped garbage and dismembered furniture. Since a child, the river and its veins of canals were places for me to think, places to heal. Once on the river's bed, I began to cleanse. I ran. I ran into the mist of morning, carrying the heat of emotion through the sun's rays. I ran past the factories that lay smack in the middle of somebody's backyard. I ran past alleys with overturned trash cans and mounds of tires. Debris lay underfoot. Overgrown weeds scraped my legs as I streamed past, recalling the song of bullets at word in the wind. I ran across bridges beneath overhead passes and then back alongside the infested walls of the concrete river, splashing rainwater as I threaded, my heels colliding against the pavement. So much energy propelled my legs, and just like the river, it went on for miles. When all was gone, the concrete river was always there, and me, always running. Cinco de Mayo by Luis J. Rodríguez. Cinco de Mayo celebrates a burning people, those whose land is starved of blood, civilizations which are no longer holders of the night. We reconquer with our feet, with our tongues, that dangerous language, saying more of this world than the volumes of textured and controlled words on a page. We are the gentle rage. Our hands hold the stream of the earth, the flowers of dead cities, the green of butterfly wings. Cinco de Mayo is about the barefoot, the untooled, the warriors of want who took on the greatest army Europe ever mustered and won. I once saw a Mexican man stretched across an upturned sidewalk near Chicago's 18th and Bishop, 1/5 of May Day. He brought up a near empty bottle to the withering sky and yelled out a grita with the words, "Que viva Cinco de Mayo." And I knew then what it meant. What it meant for barefoot, Zapoteca, indigenous, in the Battle of Puebla, and what it meant for me there on 18th Street among Los Ancianos, the moon-faced children and futureless youth, dodging the gunfire and careening battered cars. And it brought me to that war that never ends. The war Cinco de Mayo was a battle of, that I keep fighting, that we keep bleeding for, that war against the servitude that Acampa on 18th Street knew all about as he crawled inside a bottle of the meanest Mexican spirits.
This is by Juan Felipe Herrera. It's called Let Me Tell You What a Poem Brings. Before you go further, let me tell you what a poem brings. First, you must know the secret. There is no poem to speak of. It's a way to attain a life without boundaries. Yes, it's that easy, a poem. Imagine me telling you this, instead of going day by day against the razors, well, the judgments, all the TikTok bronze, a leather jacket sizing you up, the fashion mall, for example. From the outside, you think you are being entertained. When you enter, things change. You get caught by surprise. Your mouth goes sour, you get thirsty, your legs grow cold, standing still in the middle of a storm. A poem, of course, is always open for business too, except as you can see, it isn't exactly business that pulls your spirit into the alarming waters. There you can bathe, you can play, you can even join in on the group. The mist, that is. The mist becomes central to your existence. This is 100 Love Sonnets. This is number 7 by Pablo Neruda. I don't love you as if you were a rose of salt, topaz, or arrow of carnations that propagate fire. I love you as one loves certain obscure things, secretly, between the shadow and the soul. I love you as a plant that doesn't bloom, but carries the light of those flowers hidden within itself. And thanks to your love, the tight aroma that arose from the earth lives dimly in my body. I love you without knowing how or where or from when. I love you directly without problems or pride. I love you like this because I don't know any other way to love, except in this form in which I am not, are you? So close that your hand upon my chest is mine, so close that your eyes close with my dreams. The Men by Pablo Neruda. I'm Ramon Gonzalez Barbagelata, from anywhere, from Cucuy, from Paraná, from Rio Turbio, from Oruro, from Maracaibo, from Paral, from Oval, from Locanmilla. I'm the poor devil from the third world. I'm the third-class passenger installed, good God, in the lavish whiteness of snow-covered mountains, concealed among orchids of subtle idiosyncrasy. I've arrived at this famous year 2000, and what do I get? With what do I scratch myself? What do I have to do with the three glorious zeros that flaunt themselves over my very own zero, my own non-existence? Pity that brave heart awaiting its call, or the man enfolded by warmer love. Nothing's left today except my flimsy skeleton, my eyes unhinged, confronting the era's beginning. The era's beginning. Are these ruined shacks, these poor schools, these people still in rags and tatters, this cloddish insecurity of my poor families? Is all this the day? The century's beginning? The golden door? Well, enough said. I, at least, discreet, as in office, patched and pensive, I proclaim the redundancy of the inaugural. I've arrived here with all of my baggage, bad luck, and worse jobs, misery always waiting with open arms, the mobilization of people piled up on top of each other, and the manifold geography of hunger. It's called White Nights, Hillocks of Whiteness, again by Pablo Neruda. White thighs, hillocks of whiteness. Oh, woman's body, you resemble the world in your attitude of surrender. My peasant's body savagely excavates you and makes the child leap from the earth's depth. I was alone, like a tunnel. The birds fled from me, and into me entered the night's heavy invasion. To outlive me, I framed you like an arm at the forge, like an arrow in my bow, like a stone in my sling. But falls the hour of vengeance, and I love you. Body and flesh and moss and firm covetous milk. Oh, the cups of your chest. Oh, eyes of absence. Oh, roses of the public. Oh, slow, sad voice. Oh, body of my woman, I shall persist in your gracefulness. My thirst, my desire unlimited, my uncertain road, dark water courses where eternal thirst follows, and weariness follows, and infinite sorrow. Salt by José Emilio Pacheco. If you want to study its essence, its purpose, its usefulness in the world, you've got to see it as a whole. Salt isn't the individuals who make it up, but the solitary tribe. Without it, each particle would be like a fragment of nothingness, dissolving in some unthinkable black hole. Salt surfaces from the sea, its petrified foam, its sea baked by the sun. And so finally, worn out, deprived of its great water force, it dies on the beach, to become stone in the sand. Salt is the desert where there once was sea. Water and land reconciled, matter of no one. But it's why the world tastes of what it's like to be alive. And one more, a critique of poetry by José Emilio Pacheco. Here's the same rain in its angry brushwood, salt the sea in ruins. This above has been crossed out and the following written. This arching sea, its roving, rooted customs, used in 1,000 poems before now. Infected bitch, mangy poetry, laughable strain of neurosis. The price some pay for not knowing how to live. Sweet, everlasting, brilliant poetry. But maybe it's not the right time. Our era has left us talking to ourselves.
Black Stone on a White Stone by César Vallejo. I will die in Paris with a rainstorm on a day I already remember. I will die in Paris, and I don't shy away, perhaps on a Thursday, as today is in autumn. It will be Thursday, because today, Thursday, as I prose these lines, I've put on my humor in a bad mood. And today, like never before, I've turned back with all of my road to see myself alone. César Vallejo has died. They kept hitting him, everyone, even though he does nothing to them. They gave it to him hard with a club and hard also with a rope. Witnesses are the Thursday days and the humorous bones, the solitude, the rain, the roads. Miguel by César Vallejo. I'm sitting here on the old patio beside your absence. It is a black well. We'd be playing now. I can hear Mama yell, boys, calm down. We'd laugh and off I'd go to hide where you'd never look, under the stairs, in the hall, the attic. Then you'd do the same. Miguel, we were too good at that game. Everything would always end in tears. No one was laughing on that August night you went to hide away again. So late, it was almost dawn. But now your brother's through with his hunting and never finding you. The shadows crowd him. Miguel, will you hurry and show yourself? Mama will only worry.
The Lovers by Jaime Sabines, translated by W.S. Merwin. The lovers say nothing. Love is the finest of the silences, the one that trembles most and is hardest to hear. The lovers are looking for something. The lovers are the ones who abandon, the ones who change, who forget. Their hearts tell them that they will never find. They don't find, they're looking. The lovers wander around like crazy people because they're alone, surrendering, giving themselves to each moment, crying because they don't save love. They worry about love. The lovers live for the day. It's the best they can do. It's all they know. They're going away all the time, going somewhere else. They hope, not for anything in particular. They just hope. They know whatever it is, they will not find it. Love is the perpetual deferment, always the next step, the other. The lovers are the insatiable ones, the ones who must always, fortunately, be alone. The lovers are the serpent in the story. They have snakes instead of arms.
Mhm.
The veins in their necks swell like snakes too, suffocating them. The lovers can't sleep because if they do, the worms eat them. They open their eyes in the dark and terror falls into them. They find scorpions under the sheet and their bed floats as though on a lake. The lovers are crazy, only crazy, with no God and no devil. The lovers come out of their caves trembling, starving, chasing phantoms. They laugh at those who know all about it, who love forever, truly, at those who believe in love as an inexhaustible lamp. The lovers play at picking up water, tattooing smoke, at staying where they are. They play the long, sad game of love. None of them will give up. The lovers are ashamed to reach any agreement. Empty but empty from one rib to another. Death ferments them behind the eyes, and on they go. They weep toward morning in the trains, and the roosters wake into sorrow. Sometimes a scent of newborn earth reaches them, of women sleeping with a hand on their sex, contented, of gentle streams and kitchens. The lovers start singing between their lips, a song that is not learned, and they go on crying, crying for beautiful life.
Her Splendor Islanded by Octavio Paz, translated by Muriel Rukeyser. In her splendor islanded, this woman burning like a charm of jewels, an army terrifying and asleep, this woman lying within the night, like clear water lying on closed eyes in a tree's shadow, a waterfall halted halfway in its flight, a rapid narrow water suddenly frozen at the foot of a great and seamless rock, at the foot of a mountain. She is lake water in April as she lies in her depths, binding poplar and eucalyptus, fishes or stars burning between her thighs, shadow of birds scarcely hiding her sex, her breasts two still villages under a peaceful sky. This woman lying here like a white stone, like water in the moon in a dead crater. Not a sound in the night, not moss nor sand, only the slow budding of my words at the ear of water, at the ear of flesh, unhurried, running, and clear memorial. Here is the moment burning and returned, drowning itself in itself and never consumed. Wind, Water, Stone by Octavio Paz, translated by Elliot Weinberger. Water hollows stone. Wind scatters water. Stone stops the wind. Water, wind, stone. Wind carves stone. Stone's a cup of water. Water escapes and is wind. Stone, wind, water. Wind sings in its whirling. Water murmurs going by. Unmoving stone keeps still. Wind, water, stone. Each is another and no other, crossing and vanishing through their empty names. Water, stone, wind.
The Parakeets by Alberto Blanco. They talk all day, and when it starts to get dark, they lower their voices to converse with their own shadows and with the silence. They are like everybody, the parakeets. All day chatter, and at night, bad dreams. With their gold rings on their clever faces, brilliant feathers, and the heart restless with speech. They are like everybody, the parakeets. The ones that talk best have separate cages.
Hell for September by David Huerto, translated by Jamie McKendrick. Green fire, fog in the air, in an hour, a half hour, let it disperse like the fog. Let it fly off like a butterfly. Zotso prayer to cure epilepsy. Let the hand open to the mirror world of dreams. Let the eyes shut on the clenched bunch of nerves. Let the back unwind in lucid repose. Let the mouth widen under night's electric charge. Let the neck relax in the flower of sleep. Let the nostrils flare to the white scent of day. Let the legs stretch from the journey's magnetic force. Let the pubis ignite in the velvet embrace. Let the hip curve in the breeze's grace. Let the ear awaken at the ringing call. Let the hair spread from the skull's wail. Let the chest be lit within the splintered cry. Let the shoulders sleep before the falcon's flight. Let the foot lose its way in the sorcery of time. Let the throat darken with a syllable of space. Exiles by Juan Felipe Herrera. And I heard an unending scream piercing nature from the diary of Edward Milk, 1892. At the Greyhound bus stations, at airports, at silent wharfs, the bodies exit the crafts. Women, men, children, cast out from the new paradise. They are not there in the homeland, in Argentina, not there in Santiago, Chile, never there in Montevideo, Uruguay, and they are not here in America. They are in exile. A slow scream across the yellow bridge, the jaws stretched, widening, the eyes multiplied into blood, orbits torn, whirling, spilling between two slopes, the sea black, swallowing all prayers shadeless. Only tall, faceless figures of pain flutter across the bridge. They pace in charred suits, the hands lift, point and nake, and fly at sunset as cold, dark birds. They will hover over the dead ones, a family shattered by military, buried by hunger, asleep now with the eyes burning, echoes calling, Joaquin, Maria, Andrea, Joaquin, Joaquin, Andrea, and Exilio. From here we see them. We are the ones from here, not there or across, only here, without the bridge, without the arms as blue liquid quenching the secret thirst of unmarked graves, without our flesh journeying refuge or pilgrimage, not passengers on imaginary ships, sailing between reef and sky. We that die here awake on Harrison Street, on Excelsior Avenue, clutching the tenderness of chrome radios, whispering to the saints in supermarkets, motionless in the chasm of playgrounds, searching at 9 a.m. from our third floor cells, bowing mute, shoving the curtains with trembling speckled brown hands. Alone, we look out to the wires, the summer, to the newspaper wound in knots as matches for tenements. We that look out from our miniature vestibules, peering out from our old clothes, the father's well-sewn plaid shirt pocket, an old woman's oversized wool sweater peering out from the makeshift kitchen. We peer out to the streets, to the parades. We, the ones from here, not there or across, from here, only here. Where is our exile? Who has taken it? Thank you all for such a marvelous reading. It really just so full of emotion, and what a range of emotion, and such a great use of metaphor and simile. And Corinne and Helen and John, you all read in such brilliant ways, and it just really knocked me out. There's such, love of the soul. I mean, these poems have so much soul in them. Corinne, what would you like to say?
Well, I would second what you said about these poems being filled with emotion. They're just so strong, and they attack you emotionally. The last poem that you read, Harry, Exiles, kind of encapsulates so much of what we have begun to think of as our southern neighbors, always in exile and still in exile, and living amongst us, and still coping with with being an exiled people in a way, and it's such tremendous sadness, but such wonderful heart. Okay, somebody else tell me what they think.
Helen?
Well, I was really honored to be able to read two poems, both in English and in Spanish. Oh, what a wonderful opportunity to get to the basic passion of the poet who to read in their own native language, and then the poem in English it's both of the ones that I read were wonderful in English, but the heart and the passion in the Spanish was a joy for an actress to enunciate. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
I don't know if John is still there. If he is, would you like to say something, John?
Well, just in what the two women have just mentioned, the height of passion and feeling and soul behind all these poems. It's just like they were at the peak of something when they put these words down, peak of feeling, whatever it was. There's just so much beautiful creativity and imagination in these poems. And there's such heightened passions and feelings. I just love them. Thank you for asking me.
Another thing which I noticed was the accessibility. I mean, Corinne had mentioned that to me off camera about how she really understood and felt these, and those first poems that were read by Corinne, the women, the tenderness and the fear, the hairband, the woman fearful of her husband, coming on to the woman at work and giving her, her clothes and finding out, she reaches for them. And then also there was the first woman by Aleida Rodríguez, that first love, she's a lesbian, a Cuban expatriate or emigre, and she's just a lovely writer, and the tenderness in that. And then also there was one line in there, well, maybe it was a title of a poem. I can't hardly read my writing, My Brother, My Wound. But what this reading does to me, it just shows us all the common humanity that we all have together, and the sense of brotherhood that we all share, a sisterhood with all of us around the globe. And it just really, it really touched me deeply, these poems.
Yeah, if I may just say also, the first one that I read, let me tell you what a poem brings. It's just written so colloquially, just like we're talking. It doesn't feel like a poem. Before you go further, let me tell you what a poem brings. First, you must know the secret. There is no poem to speak of. It's a way to attain a life without boundaries. I love that line. It's such an unusual way of thinking about poetry. But that really is, it becomes boundless. Great poems do. Anyway, thank you.
Corinne or Helen, anything else you'd like to say?
I'd like to hear more from you.
Well, the one thing which I noticed was, there were so many great poets we did not include, like Ernesto Cardenal, a Nicaraguan revolutionary, or Lorca, to mention two. And there was also one thing that Cardenal said. He was on the side of the Sandinistas who was fighting, Reagan's Contras in Nicaragua. And so these people, the personals hooked up with the political too, a lot in these South American and Central American poets. And the one thing in terms of what John was saying, what I noticed, and Cardenal talks about it one time, is just learning. When he came to America to study in Columbia in the late 40s, he learned how to look at just the basic things, the very specific physical, concrete details. And Neruda is probably the most famous of all the South Americans, but Cardenal mentioned that to him it was Vallejo who was a soul. But I see Jennifer there. Jennifer, what would you like to add?
I want to thank you all. It was really fascinating to hear your interpretations of these poems. John, to your point that they are very accessible, very colloquial, but they also have these moments of truly being anchored in what is culturally true for the authors. And to give that voice is such a gift. And thank you all.
Next week, Phoebe will be reading the poetry of Joanne Kiger, and Judy Oberlander will be reading the poetry of Gary Snyder. So thank you all for a wonderful reading. Thank you, Jennifer.